Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: because of Mother Yashoda's hard labor, her whole body became covered with perspiration, and the flowers and comb were falling from her hair. When child Krishna saw his mother thus fatigued, he became merciful to her and agreed to be bound. Purport: when Mother Yashoda and the other ladies finally saw that Krishna, although decorated with many bangles and other jeweled ornaments, could not be bound with all the ropes available in the house, they decided that Krishna was so fortunate that he could not be bound by any material condition. Thus they gave up the idea of binding him. But in competition between Krishna and his devotee, Krishna sometimes agrees to be defeated. Thus Krishna's internal energy, Yogamaya, was brought to work, and Krishna agreed to be bound by Mother Yashoda. Om Ajnantimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Panghum Langhayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Paramananda Madhavam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sarva Shastrabdhi Piyush Sarva Vedaika Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadhya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Shrimad Bhagavatam Prabhu Kali Dhvanto Ditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. Hare Krishna. Firstly, I would like to seek the blessings of the Prabhupada disciples present here and the other senior Vaishnavas before I can say a few words. Also very happy to be back here at the Bhaktivedanta Manor after about a year. Beginning today, we are starting a lecture series called The Path of Grace, where we are to discuss the meeting of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Maharaj Pratap Rudra. It's a very beautiful story, revealing very, very wonderful, fantastic lessons. Krishna's pastimes are always carrying a very important message, a very important lesson for practitioner devotees. And thanks to the Acharyas and thanks to Srila Prabhupada, that they bring out the hidden messages behind these pastimes and give it to us. In the Vedic literatures, there is something called as Artha and Paramartha. Paramartha means achieving perfection and achieving the lotus feet of Krishna in the spiritual world. And Artha means having gain while one is living here within this material world. And Krishna's pastimes provide both. Provide us lessons while we are living here and provide us spiritual emancipation to go back to his lotus feet at the end of this life. The lessons in Krishna's pastimes are like the river Saraswati. If one goes to Allahabad in India, During the Kumbh Mela, there is the Triveni Sangam, where the river Ganga, the Yamuna, and the river Saraswati meet together. Out of the river Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati, Ganga and Yamuna are very much visible to our eyes. The river Saraswati is a river which is not visible to the eyes. This river flows apparently under the ground. The current of the river cannot be seen to our eyes. Just like the current of the river Saraswati is unseen to our eyes, similarly the messages and the lessons behind these pastimes, which are like the river Saraswati, are unseen to our eyes. Most times if we go to India, we find a lot of people who speak on the pastimes of Krishna, and who may even speak on the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for that matter. But it's more the feel-good, touchy kind of stories, and there is a lot of discussion on the pastimes of Krishna. But the lesson and the hidden message, which is like Saraswati, unseen to the eyes, is not very often presented. And therefore Srila Prabhupada and our Vaishnava Acharyas are very expert at making the hidden river visible to our eyes, in making the lessons behind these incredible pastimes visible to us. Because if we learn those lessons, see the current of this river, and try to apply those lessons in our particular practicing of Krishna consciousness, we will all be benefited by the incredible messages that these pastimes are conveying. And therefore this particular story of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meeting Maharaj Pratap Rudra is a very revealing story. It is a story of great struggle to achieve the grace of the Supreme Lord, but so is life. And so is devotional life and spiritual life. A struggle that ultimately ends into achieving the mercy of the Lord. Yesterday in our seminar we were talking, one devotee came and asked, when will all the struggles end? And the reply given to him was, the struggles will never end. After a while we'll start relishing the struggles. Someone came to Srila Prabhupada and asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, when will all the problems in the material world end? Prabhupada said, when Mahavishnu inhales. Only when Mahavishnu inhales and the whole cosmos goes in, that is probably when all the problems and struggles will end. Otherwise, prakriti sthanim karshati. It's a life of struggle. Material life is a struggle. Spiritual life is a struggle. Material life is a struggle ending in misery. Spiritual life is a joyful struggle. Susukham. Joyfully executed struggle ending in eternal bliss at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And therefore this whole episode reveals the struggles of a practitioner and the qualities that a practitioner needs to move through these struggles to ultimately get the grace of Sriman Mahaprabhu. A Christian man left his body and came to the pearly gates of heaven, where Saint Peter was sitting and was to make a judgment. So Saint Peter said, well, I'll allow you to come in heaven, but in order to come into heaven, you need 100 points. Now tell me what you did in life, and I'll assess you. I'll give you points and marks. And if it's 100, I'll pull you in. So come on, start. Imagine if you were at the gates of Golok Vrindavan, and Krishna, the Vishnu Dutas were Jai Vijay at Vaikuntha gate was standing and say, come on, say, what did you do in your devotional service? And I'll assess. 100 points needed to come in. So the Christian man started. I went to church for Sunday Mass every Sunday throughout my life since the day I was born. Of course, born I didn't walk there. I was carried and then later I walked myself, choosing to go to the church. St. Peter said, okay, 2 points. This man said, I went to church every Sunday all my life. 2 points? I said, yeah, 2 points. What else did you do? Regularly I would pull my rosary beads out and chant the name of Jesus Christ on my beads. St. Peter said, 3 points. He said, all my life I chanted on my rosary beads. St. Peter said 3 points only. So now he collected 5. 95 more to go. Now he was scratching his head to find out what more did I do I went around distributing Bibles, book distribution. I said, wow, great. How many points? Said, 3 points. Goodness. 8 done. 92 more to go. He still struggled to find out what he did. Said, I gave a massive donation to the church when the church was in dire need for its construction. How much? I gave about 25,000 pounds. So all right, 4 points. That made it 12. 82 more to go. He still scratched his head. The guy said, you know what? I stayed very chaste to my wife, my family, lived all my life with her. I lived a good family life, took responsibility of my family, my kids, everything. Led a life based on the word of the Bible. He said, 2 more points. God, this man was getting anxious. 14 points only and 86 more to go. He was so frustrated. He said, sir, I guess at this rate, only God's grace can pull me in. He said, come in, 100 points. Come in, 100 points. Oh, that was an important lesson there. Imagine if at the end of life, at the gates of Golok Vrindavan, if Krishna were to make an assessment of our devotional service throughout our life, what would pull us in? What were the points that Krishna can give us based on all what we have done in our devotional practice? Assuming to get into Golok Vrindavan, 100 points were needed. You know what's the first thing that we would rely on? Chanting my rounds. Is it not? HK108. Is it not? Like we have AK-47. So this is Hare Krishna 108 with the 108 bullets. Maya is Maya 6. She has a revolver. But she has a revolver only with 6 bullets. Lust, anger, envy, greed and pride and illusion. But ISKCON devotees have a revolver with 108 bullets. My God. To go back to the spiritual world, we would first count upon our chanting. And to chant Hare Krishna, what an uphill task. What an uphill task to deal with the mad mind. Absolutely dependent on the mind, isn't it? We sometimes feel so helplessly overwhelmed in chanting Hare Krishna. Sometimes we see devotees with the bead bag in the hand, they keep pulling out the beads to see when the final bead will come. Like this last bead. When will the last bead come? And as the last round comes, 16th round, it just speeds up. Speeds up. And with the thoughts of the mind, goodness, you can imagine, half the time it struggle with sleep. Half the time struggle with sleep. And yesterday I was mentioning in our temple back in Chopati, one brahmachari while chanting, he was walking and chanting. While walking he fell asleep and fell to the ground. And made a massive thumping sound. You don't find such species anywhere except the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Never seen anyone sleeping while walking. My God. Imagine if Krishna were to assess that chanting. How many points would we expect? A realistic assessment. How many points would we expect if Krishna were to assess our chanting, half the time struggling with sleep? And if somehow we are not struggling with sleep, my God, the mind. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Gopinath, manaje pagal amora. You know what is the meaning of pagal? Those from the funny farm. Pagal means mad. And Gopinath Bhaktivinoda Thakur singing, Manaje pagala mora, mad mind, na mane shasan, does not listen. How many times I've told my mind, Just shut up for now. Just for now, just keep quiet for this 1.5 hours. That's the 1.5 hours where the mind speaks the most. The most brilliant ideas in devotional service come when the beads come in hand. Either the beads act as a sleeping pill, or the beads act as catalysts and mood elevators to bring in all the best creative ideas in devotional service. Or the mind brings up revenge fantasies while chanting. This devotee did this to me. This devotee said this to me. If only he comes, na. Next time, I won't allow him to treat me like trash. I will trash him. Why should I be at the receiving end always? If he says this, I'll say this. If he says this, I'll say this. We become like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentaries are like that. If a devotee says this, Krishna will say this. If he says this, he will say this. So in the morning, japa time is good commentary time inside. My God. One devotee in Bombay said, Prabhuji, when I'm in the association of devotees, na, my beads move like butter. Like this. Quick. Makhan jaisi mala chalti hai. Moves like this. And when I'm outside the association of devotees, then my beads move like the stuck chain of a bicycle. I don't know if any of you ever experienced in India, when the chain of the bicycle pedal gets stuck, now it makes sound and goes one, takes 20 minutes to move ahead. So I can tell you, in the association of devotees, the beads move really smooth, but the mind moves more smoother. My God, too much. Imagine if Krishna were to come to do a random security check in the morning. You know, sometimes at the airport, there's a random security check. Imagine if Krishna were to come to do a random security check to see what's happening in the mind. Whew. In our temple, we used to have the orphanage kids, and they would also sit and chant with the devotees. And the brahmachari who was taking care of the orphanage kids would do a random security check to see what the kids are doing. So one day he found a kid sitting and eyes closed, not saying anything. You know, feigning to chant really intensely. Like this he was doing. And this brahmachari came to see what was going on. He decided to do a random security check. And he took his bead bag. There were no beads inside. Children! No beads inside. He was just putting his finger inside, and because he had to come and sit there, he was sitting and chanting. My God. Half the time struggling. Oh, someone's looking whether the beads are inside the bead bag. Half the time the struggle with the sleep, and half the time the struggle with the mind and the modes of material nature. My God. They don't leave our minds while we chant. Won't leave. Sometimes when the mode of goodness once in a blue moon is good, then focus is available. But otherwise it's so hard. Imagine if Krishna were to assess that, how many points would he give us? I don't know. Probably 2, 100 are needed to go to Golok Vrindavan. 1, 2, 3, I have no clue. And then we'll probably say, what else? Chanting, okay, 2 points. What else? My devotional service. My deity worship. Cooking. Book distribution. Management. All these services I can count on. Krishna, I did this for you. Deity worship. My God. Srila Prabhupada, when he was setting the deity worship, when he was in Australia, he installed the deities Radha Gopinath. And the senior most devotees was 6 months old. And Prabhupada installed Radha Gopinath and said, my dear Lord, you please take care of yourself. I don't know what they will do to you. You please take care of yourself, And Prabhupada came to Los Angeles. And for Los Angeles temple, they had the small Rukmini Dwarkadish then, small deities. And the devotees there, when Prabhupada came there, the devotees thought Krishna small. So they had brought a small plate, a small cup, a small bowl, and they were making small preparations and offering all of that to the deities. And when Srila Prabhupada came there, he said, Krishna is a fully grown 16-year-old boy. You have to offer him a full plate. And that is when Prabhupada gave the standard for what Rajbhog offering should be. What should all be available on a Rajbhog offering? And then when Prabhupada came to Hawaii, my God, the devotees there, many of the sannyasis, were on a macrobiotic diet. They would never touch sugar. Sugar? That's hell for health. They wouldn't touch sugar. And they wouldn't touch oil, butter, ghee, nothing. And Prabhupada came. And that night when Prabhupada arrived, he wanted a cup of milk. So he said, get me some milk with sugar. So the personal servant rushed to the deity kitchen. And there was no sugar. And this was brought to the notice of His Divine Grace. So no sugar, Prabhupada. Prabhupada was annoyed. Next morning he called all the sannyasis and all the leaders there. And he said, Krishna doesn't have sugar? In the deity kitchen there's no sugar that's been offered to him? What is happening? No, Prabhupada is unhealthy to offer. Unhealthy for whom? Unhealthy for Krishna? Prabhupada, that evening, all the sannyasis and all the leaders were sitting. And Prabhupada told the personal servant, make me puris cooked in ghee and aubergine sabji. Begun bhaja, fried in oil. And in front of the sannyasis, he was eating this sabji like this. All the macrobiotics, diets, and Prabhupada was eating his sabji and his puri. And there was no dessert. So Prabhupada said, where is the sweet? Sweet? In this temple, no sweets were there. Prabhupada said, all right, no problem. Get me a bowl of white sugar. Jai Shri Radha Gokulanand ki, Jai Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Jai Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Jai. Get me a bowl of white sugar. And somehow they managed a bowl of white sugar, and Prabhupada never did it in his life. Only then. He took the puri. And you know how when you take sabji? You take a piece and you take a little bit of sabji on it. He took a puri and put it in the bowl of sugar and filled it with sugar, ate. And he would show it to the sannyasis like this and eat, you know. And then Srila Prabhupada said one must resume the offerings of sweets to the deities immediately. He went to Auckland. And sometimes His Holiness Mahavishnu Swami Maharaj would call it awkward land. You know. He went to Auckland, and in Auckland they made an altar which was a revolving altar. On one, you know, like the revolving stage? On one side Radha Krishna and on the other side Gaur Nitai. And they expected that Srila Prabhupada would be very pleased with this innovation. And Prabhupada came, offered his obeisances, the curtains opened and the Govindam prayers started. So Prabhupada took darshan first of Gaur Nitai, closed his eyes for prayers and suddenly opened his eyes, saw Radha Krishna there. And he was stunned. What is this? And the devotee said, Prabhupada, this is the most innovative or revolving altar that we have made for the pleasure of their lordships. Prabhupada said, the deities are not rolling stones. It is the Supreme Lord, and you have to treat the Supreme Lord accordingly. Sometimes dressers, when they dress the deities, I dress the deities regularly, back from the temple that I come. And anytime I dress the deities, my God, I expect at least 3 people to come and tell me, beautiful. That flower is nice. That bead was good. That garland was fantastic. No, Yashoda Mai dresses Krishna. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada that we have been given a service that the greatest Brajbasi, Yashoda Mai, does. A pujari is blessed to be on the altar and be able to offer some food or dress the deities, a service that the greatest of all devotees, Yashoda Mai, does. And what is the assessment Krishna makes for her dressing and her puja? If we were to assess our worship, I don't know how many points Krishna would give us. 2, 1.5, 0.5, 0.25, 6.5. I have no clue. We might count on our cooking skills, isn't it? Service of cooking. Prabhupada, My God. Once he was traveling, and a lady disciple, she made samosas for Prabhupada. Made hot samosas, frying them, and Prabhupada entered the kitchen. And he picked up one right there. Offering was done. And he ate. He picked up the next one. And he ate. It was for the next day's travel. He picked up the third one. And he ate. After the 3 were over, the lady was in anxiety. This is all meant for his travel tomorrow, and he's eating it all. He ate over 8 samosas. And then that lady got a little anxious. She said, Prabhupada, how many samosas can you eat? Srila Prabhupada said, more than you can cook. Go on. Go on. And he kept eating. Now this lady felt, wow, he liked my cooking. So she asked Srila Prabhupada, expecting an answer. Said, Prabhupada, in ISKCON, who is your favorite cook? You can imagine more expecting an answer. Who is your favorite cook, Srila Prabhupada? Prabhupada paused. He said, me. The only cook in ISKCON whose prasadam I like is myself now. Everyone else is okay. And all the air around her was gone. You know. Well, we can rely on all the cooking skills. Thinking, Krishna, I cooked for you. I chanted for you. I served your deity forms. I cooked for you. That's to my credit. At the gates of Goloka, the assessment is on. You know. I cooked for you. And who's the cook? The greatest cook? Srimati Radharani. Every cook in ISKCON is getting the service that is performed by the Ladini Shakti. The pleasure potency of the Lord. Blessed are those who cook for the Lord. Blessed are those who can chant the name of the Lord. Blessed are those who can serve the Lord as a deity form. Because the greatest of all services done by the greatest residents of the spiritual world is available to us. Kali Yuga products. Can you imagine? And therefore, so many errors in the service. And more than the errors, the motivations behind the service. My God, scary, you know. Yesterday I was speaking in the seminar. Out of the many names of Srimati Radharani, one of her names is Vidyarthini. Vidyarthini. Vidyarthini is the feminine for student. Vidyarthi means a male student. And Vidyarthini means a female student. She is called Vidyarthini. She loves to be addressed by that name, Vidyarthini. What does that mean? Being a student, she's perpetually learning. Perpetually learning. Eternally, she has been upgrading her abilities to serve Krishna, her abilities to cook for Krishna. And we have heard many times that she has not repeated even one item. I'm not able to fathom how. With my Kali Yuga brain, with my space-time conditioning, I'm just not able to fathom how Srimati Radharani has not repeated a single item from the beginning of creation and pleasure for Krishna. You know, we run out of ideas to cook. How many cuisines? Thai cuisine, Burmese cuisine, Mexican, enchiladas, tacos, nachos, pasta, farfalle, penne, spaghetti. What else? Aloo paratha, aloo vada, aloo tikki, aloo this, aloo, what more? Run out of ideas to cook. I recently went to someone's house for prasadam. Sometimes Srimati Radharani also wonders, what did they make for my Lord? What have they offered, you know? They gave me a preparation called som tom and a preparation called cow sway. Som tom is a Thai salad, by the way. I had no clue what it was. It's made out of papaya and stuff. And cow sway is a Burmese preparation made in some coconut gravy and all that. And I asked, how to eat? Please tell us. Tell me first. You know, we don't know how to eat it. And what it is made of. My God. Srimati Radharani, with being Vidyarthini, is constantly upgrading her abilities to serve. And if Srimati Radharani is a learner, I don't know how anyone else cannot be a learner, you know. And therefore, here we find offering the service to Krishna, you know, cooking for Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna. And how many points would Krishna give us for that? When Srimati Radharani is personally cooking for Krishna. And then so many other services of book distribution and management. My God. And then austerities. We can recount and say, Krishna, these are the austerities that I performed for you. When I go to the gates of Golok Vrindavan, these were the austerities performed by me. How many points would Krishna give us for those austerities? You know, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, the milk-drinking brahmachari wanted to come and watch the dance of Sriman Mahaprabhu. He was hiding behind that door. And Lord Chaitanya was not feeling the ecstasy. And Lord Chaitanya asked Shrivas, is there anyone hiding in here? He said, no, there are no atheists. No, I didn't ask you whether there were no. Is there anyone here? No, but there are no agnostics. No, my question is there anyone at all here? No, there is a very simple brahmachari. He's a milk drinking brahmachari. He only drinks a little milk once in few days. And Lord Chaitanya said, he thinks that he can see my dance by drinking milk. By drinking milk, one can observe the beautiful dancing that I'm performing with my eternal associates. He said, chuck him out of here. Get him out of here. And when the milk drinking brahmachari was thrown out, he felt a little remorse that at least I got to see Mahaprabhu. And then Lord Chaitanya called him in again. You know, my God, austerities. And be funny, one of our brahmacharis, he took up an austerity of not eating fried foods for 2 years. 2 years he did not touch a single fried item. And at the end of the 2 years, as soon as the 2 years vow was over, the first day he ate 36 batata vadas. At the end of the 2 years of fasting and the first day of feasting, 36 batata, you know what batata vadas are? You know this, whatever. I don't know how to translate it in English. My God. 36 at a go straight. Sometimes I take up Chaturmasya vows. Once in a while sometimes. Of not tasting any sweets, not tasting any fried for 4 full months. And as soon as the 4 months are over, God, the tongue is starving for something sweet. I don't know how many marks Krishna would give there. Yeah, he did some austerity, but at the end of 2 years, he ate 36 batata. My goodness. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada had in his Gaudiya Math all the brahmacharis. And one brahmachari was known for his austerities. He used to sleep bare-chested with only a gamcha outside the Gaudiya Math, in the garden, in the chilling colds of the Indian winter, not here. My God. But it's still cold for them. He would sleep there. And at a point of time, he just got so haughty, got so proud. The nature of austerity is such, if not done with precise care, it can bring in a sense of false pride. This gentleman lying there with no shirt on his body and only a gamcha in the chilling cold felt so proud. He went to his Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, all the brahmacharis are fallen. They're all fallen and they're useless gone cases because they sleep inside. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he called the brahmacharis, the other brahmacharis. He said, from today, you should sleep out and he should sleep in. Because he is attached to his austerity and you are attached to your pleasure. Swap your roles. You go out and get some inconvenience to realize that life is not meant to just be in the comfort zone. And let this gentleman come in, first wear a kurta. You first wear a dhoti and a kurta and sleep here below a blanket, a duvet. and get some humility. That it's not austerity that pleases Krishna. Naham vedair na tapasa, na danena, na chejjaya. Not by all these austerities and penance can Krishna be pleased. How many marks? 2, 1, 1.5. Annas. Then comes knowledge. My chanting, my sadhana, my services, deity worship, management, book distribution, XYZ. Third comes austerity and penance. And fourth comes knowledge. What's beyond this for a devotee? What more can one go and tell Krishna that this is what I did for you? Right. Knowledge. My God. Knowledge can make us, oh, I know so much. Sir Isaac Newton, when he was on the shores of an ocean once, when he saw the vast expanse of the ocean, he turned towards the pebbles lying on the shores. And at that point of time, he was working in an area of mathematics. He realized that my knowledge compared to the knowledge given by the Lord Almighty is nothing but a small tiny pebble. An insignificant pebble in front of the ocean that exists. And in Latin, a pebble is called calculus. That is why he decided to name this branch of mathematics calculus. When people study calculus, they are very proud, but calculus is meant to say that it's a pebble to create humility. You know, Srila Prabhupada writes in a purport that when Putana was killed, and Mother Jashoda and all the Brajvasi ladies, gopis, they were chanting Nyasa mantras for Krishna to protect him. And Prabhupada writes, all of these Brajvasis, they were such repositories of knowledge. They knew everything in the Vedic literatures, how to do things. Our knowledge, oh my God, so many doubts can creep in, isn't it? Reading these literatures, our books, a river of mango juice. That's kidding, isn't it? A river of mango juice in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one boy from an engineering college came and said, the 8th child of Vasudeva and Devaki is supposed to kill Kamsa. Na? I read the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. The 8th child was supposed to kill. This Kamsa was stupid, he said. Absolutely stupid. Why did he put Vasudeva and Devaki in the same prison cell? Simple. If he would have put them in different prison cells, there would be no child born. That was his conditioning. He's reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the conditioning of the space-time frame is being imposed on the scriptures. You know, my God. How, no, both of them separate, no question of a child being born. Goodness. The moon landing. Whew. When Prabhupada was talking about the moon, you know, the moon landing issue, oh, so many devotees had trouble with that. And Prabhupada was saying they didn't go to the moon. They didn't go to the moon. The moon is farther away than the sun. How can that be? And Prabhupada was so simple. He said, just see, what comes first? First comes sun, then comes moon. First comes Sunday, then comes Monday. Moon day. Prabhupada was so very simplistically he was putting. But the others, Sunday, Monday, therefore sun is first and moon is later. They were just not being able to understand this fact. Goodness. And one devotee came and said, but is there any deity of Mohini Murti in the world? I want to see a deity of Mohini Murti. And then the person who was answering the question said, Mohini came for demons. Are you a demon? You know, then probably you will get the deity of Mohini Murti. And a manager in ISKCON can quote the right episode for the service that he wants to get done. You know, that's the way we've used this knowledge to get things done many times. Oh, Maha cleaning is to be done. Gundicha Marjanam. See, you know, Annakut festival is soon coming up. Madhavendra Puri story. You know, and standards of the deity worship needs to go high up. Cleanliness, immaculate cleanliness. Raghav Pandit, he threw away that coconut that he brought from such a distance because the guy just touched the ceiling. With all this knowledge, conditioned by our Gunibhuta Mana. Gunibhuta Mana means a mind which is influenced by the 3 modes. can only see the scriptures from that point of view. At the end of it all, my God, what will be the total score? Have I made any? I'm not. It's not to make hopeless or anything, you know. What will be the total score at the end of life when we are at the gates of Golok Vrindavan? When Krishna makes an assessment, probably about 8, 10, 12, 16, 25, 50, 100 on 100? Goodness. That is where the path of grace comes in. That is where the path of grace comes in. And the verse that we are reading today, Drishtva parishramam Krishna kripaya sitsva vandhane. Parishram, hard labor. Kripaya, grace. The story of Damodar Leela with the 2 fingers, too short. One finger is the parishrama, second finger is the kripa, and the parishram side is only 8 or 10, maybe 12, maybe 14. The kripa side, the grace that comes, is the one that saves us and pulls us up to Krishna's lotus feet. Tesham aham samuddharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasa. I shall lift my devotee up. He can try, he can keep chanting, must be, all this has to be there. The first finger of parishram has to be there, but all one can get by that parishram is 8 or 10 points. Bhakti is the path of grace. The Krishna's grace, Srila Prabhupada's grace, the Parampara's grace, the Vaishnava's grace has to pull us up, uplift us in order to be able to reach there and get those 100 points, to be able to enter through the gates of Golok Vrindavan. You know, what's beautiful about Krishna, such a beautiful thing about Krishna, is Krishna never sees externals. He never goes by externals and never judges anyone's by externals. He'll see the effort, but what truly brings that grace is sincerity of practice. Externally, success or failure, honor or dishonor, up or down, there is struggle in chanting the rounds, doesn't matter. I gave up only one book through my life, doesn't matter. But the sincere endeavor, parishramam, drishtva, his eyes are open, constantly open, looking for that sincere endeavor. And like I always explain, how Lord Ranganath has his eyes closed and how Lord Jagannath has his eyes wide open. With his eyes closed, Lord Ranganath wants to overlook all our faults, shortcomings, difficulties in our services. And the same Lord as Jagannath has his eyes wide open only for this one purpose. Drishtva parishramam. To see that small act of endeavor, that small sincere effort that a devotee puts, those tiny baby steps towards trying to please Krishna. And then, he'll back it all up. That is the meaning of the word Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. I carry what they have and I preserve what they lack. We will do our best and the rest is chipped in by Krishna. The 82, 92 marks are chipped in by Krishna. Welcome. Come back. Bhakti is a path of grace. In the year 1892, Stanford University, there were several students. One student was an orphan. Somehow he had managed to get admission in the Stanford University. It was reputed even then and it is still today. When he got admitted in this university, sincere student, studying really hard, working really to his level best, but an orphan, no money. In the second year of his study, he couldn't put in the money to continue education. So one of his friends said, why not have a musical concert on the campus and raise money? In those days, 1892, one of the most famous musicians on the planet, who was a pianist, playing the piano, was from Poland. The name of this Polish pianist was Ignacy Paderewski. This man, so famous. The friend suggested to this orphan, why not get him? Let's get him. We'll arrange for a musical concert, raise the funds, pay him whatever he needs, and from that you can pay off for your fees and move on. So, okay, fine. They went to meet his secretary. And the secretary of Ignacy Paderewski said, $2,000 for one concert. Mind you, we're talking of 1892. About 120 years back. That was the money he was asking for his recital. $2,000. Said, okay, fine, we'll raise it. They decided. The day of the concert arrived. Mr. Ignacy Paderewski, he came and he performed. Everyone was spellbound. Spellbound by his musical performance. At the end of the musical performance, this gentleman, the orphan, came up to him. He had tears in his eyes. He said, sir, I'm extremely sorry. I promised that I would give you $2,000, but we could only raise $1,600. We are in a deficit of $400. Here's $1,600 cash, and here's a post-dated check for $400. I promise, for the next 4 months, I shall toil, leave my education. Where do I get? 1,600 has gone to you. I'm still in a deficit of 400. I can't pay the fees off. I'll go and work for 4 months, 5 months, and put in my bank account this $400. And I promise you I'll give it to you. Ignacy Paderewski took this bunch of $1,600 bills and threw it. And he said, keep this. Keep this for your fees. Keep this for your fees and study. If there's something that remains, give me. Otherwise, don't worry about it. This orphan, he went on to study at Stanford University. Later, Mr. Ignacy Paderewski became the Prime Minister of Poland. This is a true story, by the way. Became the Prime Minister of Poland. And during the World War, Poland was in a very catastrophic situation. They didn't have any food to eat, not a grain, and over 1 million people to feed. He decided to turn to the food relief in the United States of America. When he appealed to the food relief in the United States, as soon as the appeal was made, in 2 days, there was a shipload of grains that came to Poland. The catastrophe was averted. They were saved. And Ignacy decided to go and personally meet the head of the food relief in the US of A. When he came to meet him, the name of this gentleman was Mr. Herbert Hoover. And when he came to thank him, thank you so much for sending this food. He said, I was that orphan for whom, you paid off the fees of $1,600. Today I am the head of the food relief, and it's just a matter of remembering what you did for me, and I'm reciprocating by sending the food back. Later on, Sir Herbert Hoover became one of the presidents of America as well. Right. When I read the story, I thought, how much more bhakti is a path of grace? Where he was short of $400, and it was Ignacy Paderewski's kindness that filled in for that, so that he could move on the path that he had chosen. Bhakti is such a path of grace where we lack those points that we have been talking of this morning. And it is the kindness of the Lord, kindness of Srila Prabhupada, kindness of the Parampara, kindness of the Vaishnavas, who by their grace and their blessings fill in the deficit to make it 100, so that we can go back and tread our path back home, back to Godhead, And therefore, there is 2 kinds of bhakti. One is called Kripa Siddhi, perfection. Second is called Sadhana Siddhi. Kripa Siddhi is Krishna just gives mercy. Whether you do sadhana, you don't do, whoever you are, a rat comes and he just sees the wick being extinguished, so he goes not to light the wick up again, but goes to eat the ghee. And in eating the wick off, the wick goes up and again it gets lit up. It was just getting extinguished. And Krishna says, wow, he offered a lamp to me, come back. And every year, Damodar Ashtakam, we are offering lamp after lamp, we are still here. You know? Someone gets a drop, an ant was moving by, and a drop of Charnamrit fell on the ant, and the ant drowned in the ant. For it, it's flood. Flood of Charnamrit. The ant drowned and went back to the spiritual world. And after every Janmashtami, I drink pots of Charnamrita. Pots, literally. Still here. Sometimes feels like not working, man. This whole part doesn't work, looks like. Kripa Siddhi is exceptional cases. Sadhana Siddhi is the general case. In both cases, Kripa is needed. In Kripa Siddhi, straight Kripa. In Sadhana Siddhi, sadhana is done, the parishramam, and then Kripaya. Then Kripa. And this is the general rule. One of our brahmacharis went for a visa application. For the American visa. And when he came to the American consulate, he was sitting there, his turn yet to come. One guy had all his documents in place. Absolutely all documents in place, filed properly, confident, dressed up well. His number was called. And this lady looked at the documents, gave the passport and get out. Rejected? And then suddenly, token number 23 was called, although it was still time for token number 18, so 23 was called before 18. This was a lady. And she had a little daughter with her. And this lady the child was crying like anything inside the consulate, and everyone was looking at this. She was saying, please, quiet, quiet, quiet. And as her number was called, token number 23, she took a file of papers with the little crying child and came to the visa counter where the American lady was supposed to interview her. Her documents, 5 were missing. 5 documents were missing. As she came to the visa counter, whatever documents were there were falling apart. And the American lady said, give me your passport. Stamped the visa and go. Hey! Injustice! This guy had everything in place, confident, answered all the questions well, rejected. And this lady had everything messed. She got a visa. That is Krishna. That is the difference between Kripa Siddhi and Sadhana Siddhi. When the child cried, probably this lady had a child back in America. She remembered, oh my daughter, come. Go. And this man, go, get out. Imagine. We are all looking for a visa to go back to the spiritual world. My chanting, all my devotional practices are my documents to get that visa. ISKCON is the consulate general of Golok Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada is the ambassador who has come from that nation and is sitting in this world to stamp those visas. Right. Our sadhana is only filing the documents. Ultimately, it is in the hands of the visa officer whether to give that visa or not. That is called Kripa. That is called Kripa. And therefore sadhana siddhi means my chanting, 1 document ready. My book distribution, the 2nd document is in place. My services I did, the 3rd document in place. My austerities, the 4th document in place. My knowledge, the 5th document in place. My preaching service, the 6th document in place. The service I did to devotees, 7th document in place. At the end, we may not get a visa. Because this doesn't bring a visa. This is only the parishrama to show that I sincerely want a visa. And then when Krishna stamps that passport, Srila Prabhupada stamps our passport of Republic of Golok Vrindavan, that is when the visa comes. And for some special cases, don't bring documents. I'll give you a visa. Go. The rat, the ant. That's called Kripa Siddhi. Right. Sadhana Siddhi means my sadhana is the documents and the grace is the visa officer's final decision. And therefore, what Krishna truly looks at is the sincerity of the practice. That brings a visa. Chanting is fine. But what Krishna looks at is not the beads and the lips. What Krishna looks at is a sincere endeavor, drishtva parishramam, Krishna, of a devotee. New York City, Srila Prabhupada was told by a senior GBC member that in the temple here in New York, Prabhupada, devotees are falling victim to judgmentalism. They're judging each other like anything, criticizing, being critical, offensive to each other. Could you kindly address this, Srila Prabhupada? In the class the next morning, Srila Prabhupada told a story. Srila Prabhupada said, once in a city in India, in a town in India, there was a prostitute. And this prostitute, just across the road that the prostitute lived, was a Brahmana. They lived exactly opposite each other. And the Brahmana would all day long sit with his Gita and chant all the verses of the Gita thoroughly and perfectly well. And it so happened that the time of death arrived, the final moment. The Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas came. The Vishnudutas went to the house of the prostitute, and the Yamadutas went to the house of the Brahmana. They knocked. The Brahmana opened the door. Said, time has come, we've come to take you. Said, hey, this is a wrong address. Like I was mentioning yesterday, your tom-tom's not working. Feed your postal code properly. The next house, opposite the lane. Go there. Said, my dear Brahmana, we know what we're doing, okay? Get it. Said, but explain to me. I read all the Gita verses, I chanted all my mantras and everything properly, and that prostitute has been sinning. Vishnudutas to take her to the spiritual world. Prabhupada paused and continued the story. He said, the Yamadutas explained, while you were reading the verses of the Gita and chanting your mantras, your eyes were in the other window on the prostitute, and your mind was always contemplating how to enjoy. And while that prostitute was doing whatever she was doing, she was looking through the window towards your house, and constantly in her mind she was thinking, how fortunate is this Brahmana that is chanting the name of God, reciting the verses of the Gita. How fortunate is he that he is able to serve the Lord, and how fallen am I. If only I can one day do it. Said her sincerity and her regret has purified her. I'm not saying one should, I'm not kind of thing. Prabhupada told this story to the devotees in New York to say one can never judge the consciousness of a devotee. Externally and apparently, whatever one may be doing, coming as rough, hard, strong, the fan, Prabhupada said, is switched off, but the momentum is still on, the momentum of conditioning is still on. But the core sincerity is what Krishna, Guru and the Vaishnavas say, not the externals. They give points for that sincerity, And therefore, even the Brahmana in South India, did he know how to chant the verses rightly? He was messing them up. When Lord Chaitanya asked him, what are you doing? What are you reciting it for? Vipra kahe murkha ami, shabdartha na jani, shuddha shuddha gita padi, guru agya mani. Vipra kahe murkha ami. I am murkha, a fool. Shabda artha na jani. I don't know the meaning of these words. Shuddha ashuddha gita padi. I am not even chanting these mantras rightly, chanting these verses rightly. But I am doing it only for one reason. Guru agya mani. My Guru told me, you sit here and recite those verses. What did Lord Chaitanya see? He did not see the rattling of the verses of all those Brahmins in Srirangam. Lord Chaitanya was attracted by this. And he came to the South Indian Brahmana to pay his attention. It's a whole long story of how he gave 6 rewards to that Brahmana. Incredibly amazing. Because he sees the core sincerity. And therefore, ultimately, it is the path of grace, where we can do our services and we can do our chanting and we can do everything that is essential, and we must. That's the filing of the documents. But at the end of it all, Krishna what will he do? This is what he will do. Swamatuhu svinnagatraya visrastakkavarasraja drishtva parishramam Krishna kripayasit swabandhane. He will see, oh my mother Jashoda, Swamatuhu, my mother, Svinnagatraya, her garland is all gone. Kabarasraja, her hair is all disheveled. There's perspiration on her forehead. Parishramam, she's tried hard to bind me. Kripaya, now I shall give mercy. Now I shall give kripa. And therefore, bhakti is indeed the path of grace. And beginning tomorrow, we shall discuss the story of Maharaj Prataprudra and what were the documents that he collected to ultimately get stamped by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, visa granted, ready to go. This will be our discussion for the next couple of sessions in the context of Maharaj Prataprudra receiving the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada, to conclude, was in Hawaii on a morning walk. And as he was walking with all the devotees, Prabhupada said, if there's any heaven on earth, that is the United States of America. And the devotees from the US were feeling, wow, yes, that's great. Prabhupada's calling our country heaven on earth. Then Prabhupada said, and in the United States of America, if there's a heaven in the United States, that's Hawaii. And all the devotees from Hawaii started feeling, wow, Prabhupada calls this like heaven in America. US is heaven on earth and Hawaii is heaven in the US. Wow, great. And they were like feeling really great. And then Prabhupada said, so you're all here now. You have to perfect your Krishna consciousness to go back to Godhead. But if you do not perfect your Krishna consciousness, do not worry. You will be born in a wonderful family in India. So now all the devotees were shaken. Absolutely shaken. Because two things. They were shaken by two things. First, they felt we have no hope to perfect our Krishna consciousness in this lifetime. And second, India. The hot summers. The busy roads. My God, the honking of horns. Anxiety. So they probed the personal servant of Srila Prabhupada when we sit on the car after the morning walk, please bring it up again, to ask what he meant. So while they were again going in a car, back to the temple, Prabhupada's personal servant sitting in the back seat, Prabhupada in the front. Prabhupada, I had a question. What's your question? Prabhupada, this morning you said on the morning walk that anyone who doesn't perfect his Krishna consciousness will be given a birth in a devotee family in India. Prabhupada, devotees were scared. Birth in India, my God, very scared of the lack of facility and all that. Prabhupada said, don't worry. He said, don't worry. I've come to the Western world to establish this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And all over the Western world, I've opened so many temples. If you don't perfect your Krishna consciousness, you'll be born in one of the temple communities in the Western world, and that is the same as your birth in India. And all the devotees in the car shouted, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavat Mahapuran ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.